The morning sun cast long shadows across Riverside Park as 73-year-old Master Sergeant James Mitchell made his way along the familiar walking path. It was Tuesday, 7:30 a.m., and James followed the same routine he'd maintained for the past 5 years since retiring from the military. The crisp autumn air felt good in his lungs, and the peaceful sounds of birds chirping helped quiet the memories that sometimes haunted his sleep. James wore his favorite olive-green jacket, the one with the faded army patches that told the story of 3 decades of service. His weathered hands gripped a simple wooden walking stick, more for comfort than necessity, and his gray beard was neatly trimmed. To anyone paying attention, the dignity in his posture and the purposeful way he moved would have revealed his military background, but most people simply saw an elderly black man taking his morning walk. Before we continue with James's incredible story, I want to connect with you for just a moment. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from today, and if you believe in the power of loyalty and courage, hit that subscribe button because we share amazing true stories like this one that will restore your faith in both humanity and our four-legged heroes. On this particular morning, James had chosen to take a different route through the park. Construction on his usual path had forced him to walk through an area he rarely visited, near the community center where groups of young people often gathered. As he rounded a corner near the basketball courts, he noticed something that made him pause. 3 teenage boys were huddled around a park bench, their voices raised in what appeared to be an argument. James couldn't make out the words, but their body language suggested trouble. His military instincts kicked in, and he slowed his pace, not wanting to interfere but also concerned about the escalating situation. What James didn't know was that 2 patrol officers had been watching the same scene from their squad car parked across the street. Officers Martinez and Thompson had received a call about suspicious activity in the park, and they'd been observing the area for the past 10 minutes. As James continued walking, trying to mind his own business, one of the teenagers suddenly broke away from the group and ran directly toward him. The boy, no more than 16, looked panicked and desperate. "Please, sir," the teenager gasped. "You have to help me. They're trying to make me do something I don't want to do." Before James could respond, the other 2 boys approached aggressively. "Mind your own business, old man," one of them sneered. "This doesn't concern you." James felt his protective instincts surge. He'd spent his career looking out for young soldiers, and he wasn't about to abandon that responsibility now. "Son," he said firmly to the frightened teenager, "you stay right here with me." The confrontation was brief but intense. James positioned himself between the scared boy and his pursuers, using his commanding presence to defuse the situation. The 2 aggressive teenagers, faced with the veteran's unwavering stance, eventually backed down and left the area. "Thank you," the young man said, tears in his eyes. "They were trying to get me to sell drugs. I just wanted to go home." James walked the boy to the park entrance and made sure he was safely on his way before returning to his morning routine. But the encounter had been witnessed by the 2 patrol officers, who had only seen part of what happened from their distant vantage point. From their perspective, they'd observed an elderly black man in what appeared to be a confrontation with several teenagers. Without context, and influenced by their own biases, they assumed the worst. Officers Martinez and Thompson approached James as he was sitting on a bench, catching his breath after the encounter. Their squad car was accompanied by a K-9 unit, and a large German shepherd named Rex sat alert in the specialized vehicle. "Sir, we need to talk to you," Officer Martinez called out, his hand resting on his radio. James looked up, genuinely confused. "Is there a problem, officers?" "We received reports of suspicious activity involving an elderly man and some teenagers," Officer Thompson said, his tone already accusatory. "Several witnesses saw you in what appeared to be a confrontation." James stood slowly, his walking stick in hand. "Officers, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I was helping a young man who was being pressured by some other kids. I can explain what happened." But the officers had already made up their minds. They saw an elderly black man with a walking stick, and their assumptions filled in the blanks their limited observation had left empty. "Sir, we're going to need you to put down that weapon and step away from the bench," Officer Martinez demanded. "Weapon?" James looked down at his walking stick, incredulous. "Officers, this is just a walking stick. I'm a retired Army Master Sergeant. I was trying to help someone." "Sure you were," Officer Thompson muttered under his breath. "We've heard that before." The situation escalated quickly. Despite James's calm explanations and respectful demeanor, the officers became increasingly aggressive. They demanded he put his hands behind his back, and when James asked why he was being arrested, they claimed he was resisting. "Sir, you need to comply immediately," Officer Martinez shouted, "or we're going to have to use force." James, drawing on decades of military discipline, remained calm despite the injustice unfolding before him. "Officers, I understand you're doing your job, but I've done nothing wrong. I'm a veteran, and I was helping a young man in trouble." That's when Officer Thompson made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. Frustrated by what he perceived as non-compliance, he gestured toward the K-9 unit. "Bring Rex over here," he called to his partner. "Maybe that will help him understand we're serious." Officer Martinez opened the K-9 vehicle, and Rex, a 4-year-old German Shepherd with an impeccable service record, jumped out. The dog was trained for drug detection and suspect apprehension, and he'd never failed to follow a command. "Rex, watch him," Officer Thompson commanded, pointing at James. But something extraordinary happened next. Instead of taking an aggressive stance, Rex tilted his head and studied James carefully. The dog's ears perked up, and his tail began to wag slightly. "Rex, I said watch him," Officer Thompson repeated, his voice sharper. The dog took a few steps toward James, but his body language was completely wrong for an attack posture. Rex's head was lowered, his tail was wagging more vigorously, and he was making soft whining sounds. James, despite his fear and confusion, noticed the dog's behavior. Something about Rex reminded him of the military working dogs he'd trained with during his service. He'd spent 2 years as a K-9 handler early in his career, and he recognized the signs of a highly trained military dog. "Easy, boy," James said softly, using the calm, authoritative tone he'd perfected years ago. "Easy." Rex's response was immediate and stunning. The dog sat down, his tail wagging furiously, and let out a single sharp bark, not aggressive, but excited. Then, in a move that left everyone speechless, Rex performed a perfect military salute position, sitting at attention with his head held high. James stood slowly, his hand resting on Rex's head. The dog remained calm but alert, his loyalty evident in every fiber of his being. "Officers," James said, his voice steady despite the emotional turmoil, "I understand you were responding to what you thought was a threat. But this is exactly why we need to be careful about assumptions. I served this country for 30 years. I've trained dogs like Rex, and I've dedicated my life to protecting people, including both of you." The veteran looked down at Rex, who gazed back with absolute devotion. "This dog recognizes something you didn't see. He sees past the color of my skin, past my age, past your assumptions. He sees a soldier, a protector, someone who has earned respect through service." Officer Martinez, his face flushed with shame, stepped forward. "Sir, we owe you a sincere apology. We made assumptions based on incomplete information, and that's inexcusable." James nodded, his hand still resting on Rex's head. "I accept your apology, but I want you to understand something important. I'm not angry about what happened to me. I'm worried about what happens to other people who look like me but don't have a K-9 partner to vouch for their character." The veteran's words hung in the air like a challenge to do better, to be better. "Rex here has been trained to see beyond surface appearances," James continued. "He responds to character, to training, to the essence of who someone really is. Maybe we could all learn something from him." As the officers prepared to leave, genuinely apologetic and clearly affected by the encounter, James called out to them one more time. "Officers, I hope you'll remember this day. Not because an old veteran was treated unfairly, but because a dog showed more wisdom than any of us. Rex didn't see a threat. He saw a fellow soldier. He didn't see color or age. He saw service and sacrifice. The next time you're called to judge someone, remember Rex's example. Look deeper. See the person's heart, their character, their story." James gave Rex a final pat, and the dog's tail wagged one more time before he reluctantly returned to his handler. As the police vehicles drove away, James continued his walk through the park, but now with a renewed sense of purpose. The story of Rex and the veteran spread quickly through the community, becoming a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound lessons about loyalty, respect, and seeing beyond appearances come from the most unexpected teachers. Rex had done more than just refuse to attack an innocent man. He had demonstrated the kind of unconditional recognition of worth that the world desperately needed. If this incredible story moved you and reminded you that true loyalty sees beyond the surface, please share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories that prove heroes come in all forms, sometimes with four legs and an unshakable sense of what's right.